You're listening to the Cultivating Careers in Alternative Proteins podcast, a podcast which features students and early career professionals who work in the alternative protein industry, where they discuss their journeys and deliver advice on how you can start a career in this revolutionary field. I've decided to do something very different with this episode, something that I feel is relevant to everyone, regardless of your background. Instead of interviewing someone who works for an alternative protein startup, my guest today, Pia Voltz, specializes in recruitment and helps to fill job opportunities in the alternative protein industry. Pia founded Tälist in early 2022 with the goal of matching alternative protein businesses with the best talent from around the globe for the benefit of humans, nature, and animals. She is also the co-founder and board member of Cellular Agriculture Germany and a member of the board of advisors for Animal Advocacy Careers. Prior to starting Tälist, Pia was a consultant and project manager working for clients from different industries. In addition, she has an MBA and a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology. I'm quite confident you'll enjoy my interview with Pia. Hello, Pia, and welcome to the Cultivating Careers in Alternative Proteins podcast. I am so delighted to have you on the show today.
Hi there, and thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be your guest today.
Yeah, excellent. To start off, could you explain how your past experiences led you to start Tälist?
Yeah, that's always a challenging question because where do you set the starting point of a journey? But let's just say that, like so many other people, I really wanted to pivot into the alternative protein industry. And you have to know that I don't have a scientific or technical background. I studied psychology, and then I was working as a project manager and consultant for clients from all different kind of industries, not the alternative protein industry though. So there was no quick way for me to get into the industry. And it wasn't obvious at that point when I decided that I wanted to change my career into all proteins. So what I did is I participated in the ProVeg Food Hackathon last November, and I was even part of the winning team. We actually won the food hackathon with a vegan cheese idea. And I also supported a tempeh startup. I also had a lot of conversations going on with many different people from the alternative protein industries. Did a lot of white space research using the GFI solutions database. Basically, these were several things going on in parallel. And at some point, I just realized that there are some gaps, for example, a huge talent gap. So you could say because of the industry being so new or young that it's still lacking in some industry-specific infrastructure or enabling services. And talent solutions was one of them. And then I realized, well, actually, that's what I've done in the past. I mean, I've been working as a consultant, doing things like executive search, assessment, training, employer branding for all these clients. So it felt like a match that I saw this gap. And then on the other hand, I have this experience and expertise. So I felt like it would be pretty cool to start my own vegan startup, but I think maybe I have a better impact and can serve the industry even better if I really work on something like talent solutions. That's when I decided that I want to start Tälist beginning of this year, 2022. It went pretty well because we are tapping into a big demand in the industry.
Okay, excellent. And can you please explain a little bit more about what Tälist does and what have been some of your accomplishments so far?
Yeah, I'd love to. So Tälist basically matches alternative protein businesses with the best talent from all around the globe. That means that we offer different talent solutions such as headhunting or recruitment, active sourcing. It basically means that you are trying to find the best people for an open position using, of course, job ads that you publish, but more and more also by reaching out to candidates for example, through platforms like LinkedIn, but also networks, associations, and other talent hubs where you can find the people that you want for this open position. So this is something that we offer. Companies can basically choose if they want us to do the whole recruitment process or if they just want support in one of the steps, for example, the active sourcing. And we also offer consulting on hiring topics. So very practical things, or reading through a job ad and just giving feedback, making some editing suggestions, how to improve the job ad. So this is what we're currently doing. And in the background, we're also trying to work on some more scalable solutions, because headhunting is great when it comes to filling very specific key roles, but it's not very scalable. You really need the right recruiters, and it's not that easy to find the right recruiters. So we need people that have a scientific and technical understanding of the roles and the requirements that come along with these roles. Because the alternative protein industry sometimes is very scientific or technical, especially when we talk about technologies like precision fermentation, cellular agriculture. So you need recruiters who are able to really understand the requirements of a role and who are able to assess candidates accordingly. And that's not that easy, actually. I mean, we're lucky because we found the people. Of course we did. That's what we do. We find the right people for open jobs. But it's definitely a challenge to scale up a headhunting business. So this was basically one part of the motivation to look for more scalable solutions as well. And also because we want to be inclusive, we want to offer our services to companies in every stage, like from very early stage to scale up to established corporations that basically have a new alt protein branch. And our accomplishments, well, at the beginning of this year, we got some pre-seed funding, which was, of course, great because it enabled us also to hire people, build up a team. But it was also like a proof of concept for us that the funder basically confirmed that what we're doing is necessary and helpful and valuable for the industry. We also built up a team of 9 skilled volunteers. Some of them actually have already left. They said from the beginning that they would only stay for a couple of months, but it was super valuable to have this team at the very beginning because they were helping and supporting with certain tasks. But I think even more so it was the psychological effect of having a team and people from all around the world believing in the project. So I think for me that was a huge accomplishment, and again, like a proof of concept that what we're doing is a good thing and the right thing to do. We hired a full-time recruiter, a communications manager, so we're growing our team successfully. We're having a lot of conversations with startups, but also investors and other stakeholders from the industry. We already are offering career coaching calls, so there's a lot of interest from people that also want to pivot into the alternative protein industry, but don't really know how, which is very interesting because it seems like there's almost like this mismatch. On the one hand, we have companies that are trying to fill certain roles and have a hard time finding the right people, but then there are, on the other hand, a lot of candidates that want to start or pivot their career into alt protein and don't really know how. So basically, we're talking with both sides, and that's quite valuable for us. We get a lot of insights also from the candidate side, which is super interesting and of course helps us to do a better job when finding the right people for alternative protein companies. Then maybe something not so spectacular, but I honestly consider it an accomplishment that we are now finally registered as a limited in Germany, because it's a very bureaucratic and challenging and long process here. So I'm very happy that this is taken care of. So now we're basically ready to go and start with our services.
All right. Well, congratulations, first of all.
Thanks a lot.
And so what have been some of your strategies to finding candidates?
Our strategy is a multi-channel approach. That means that we would always post a job ad, and it's actually not that easy to write a very good job ad. There are some pitfalls. So first step is always writing a state-of-the-art job ad and then publish it on different platforms like LinkedIn or Indeed, but also more position-specific job portals that already focus on a certain target group. Then we combine this with active sourcing. So again, we use, for example, LinkedIn, also different LinkedIn groups, but also basically communities beyond the alternative protein industry, because this is really, I think, where Tälist has the biggest counterfactual impact. It's really when we are approaching professionals that are working in adjacent industries, for example, medicine, pharmacy, chemistry, life science, and that have the right skill set, but aren't aware that they could actually also make a career in the alternative protein industry. So this is a little bit like our main target group that we focus on. So we're not trying to fish so much into our own pool, which is the alternative protein industry. We don't want to cannibalize the alternative protein industry, but we really want to bring talent from the adjacent industries into the alternative protein industry. And we are using every possible network and organization and multiplier that is out there, because I think some of the positions are so specific that you really need to find the right people with the skill set, and there are not that many worldwide. So this is also the reason why we are headhunting globally, because sometimes you will not find the right person maybe in the country where your company is operating. So you really need to consider other regions of the world. And that's the second thing that is special about Tälist, that we are doing it globally.
Okay. What have you been using to convince people to switch from their current industry into the alternative protein industry?
So we do have a couple of talking points, and we're trying to find out what the candidate is interested in, because that's obviously different from person to person, what motivates them. I think usually startups can't win the salary competition. So salary usually isn't the main argument that we are communicating when we're trying to convince a candidate. But I think there are a lot of other very interesting facts that speak in favor of the alternative protein industry. I mean, I think that more and more people are aware of the global challenges we are facing, for example, climate change, and they want to do something to contribute finding solutions for these problems. They want to do something meaningful, something that has a purpose. So that's definitely one talking point, that we just show them how impactful the work for the alternative protein industry really is. And by the way, to make this more tangible, we are developing a so-called impact calculator, which is the tool that allows you to calculate how much impact a position has for you in metrics like CO2 equivalents or animal life saved, just to really make it more tangible for people to imagine how much impact you can have. Then, of course, scientific or technical challenges and innovation. I mean, people that work in R&D are probably really excited about challenges like this, and very often you will find a startup that is doing something that no one else has done before. For example, using a certain material for a certain product, and you can't find anything in the literature about this. So it's really new, and you can basically build a legacy in this field. So I think that is something that might also be super exciting for people already working in R&D, that it's a new challenge and that they have a lot of freedom and influence by building up a company around a new technology. Then just working in a startup can be a benefit for some people, because it just feels very different than working in a corporate. Some of the startups have a massive growth. It's unbelievable. Like, they started a couple of years ago and they got so much funding that they were growing intensely. And with this, there are a lot of opportunities, of course, for their own staff. So that's something that can be super exciting for some people. And then it's a small international market that is growing. So that's also interesting for some people. You can work in the region that you're from, but you can also start a career on the other side of the globe. So I could continue probably and find other talking points, but these are the major ones. And again, we're trying to basically assess or feel what the person is interested in, and then depending on that, really mention the ones that are relevant for the person.
Right, yeah, that's a really good approach. And I really love the idea of the impact calculator. I think that's something that you should, once you get more established, when you're looking to recruit on new candidates, say, this is the impact that some of our previous candidates that we've recruited have achieved so far, and you can do something similar.
Yeah, exactly. I think that probably really helps people because you can't really compare it or get a sense of it otherwise. So I think that's really helpful for people to understand the scale of the impact.
Yeah, and definitely the startup environment and exponential growth of the company can be really exciting to work in, and being a part of bringing on new people and seeing the company grow can really be motivating for people. And I can definitely see that being something that would attract people to this space. So for you personally, what has been your main motivation for getting into the alternative protein industry?
Yeah, definitely the impact. I think like many, many other people that are active in this field, I am just convinced that offering alternatives to animal products is one of the most promising things you can do to reduce factory farming and all the horrific side effects and consequences it produces. Learning about alternative proteins for me was really like a game changer, I would say. So impact is the biggest driver, but I'm also a little bit of a science nerd, even though I didn't study anything like chemistry. I just love science, and I think that people working in R&D are really my heroes among entrepreneurs and everyone else that is basically working on solutions and services that are changing our world to the better. So I find it really fascinating just on the scientific level to see what is possible. And then maybe a little bit, a tiny egoistic reason is that I really love cheese. So I'm really hoping that there will be more or better alternatives in the future so I can indulge in my cheese love without feeling too guilty. So maybe that is also a small egoistic reason.
Fair enough. I think cheese is one of the biggest challenges for making a transition to a plant-based diet. But that being said, plant-based cheeses have come a long way in recent years.
Yeah, I'm super excited what will come to the market in the next couple of years. I mean, I'm living in Berlin and we have Formo here, and unfortunately I have not yet been invited to one of their tastings, but I'm really excited about their product.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So what makes human resource work so critical to the development of the alternative protein industry?
If you're asking me, it's pretty simple. You can have the best business model on the world. You can have the most innovative product idea, but eventually you need the right team to execute this idea. You need people that are working to make this idea a concrete product or service. You simply need people on board and people with the right skill set. It's a little bit tricky to quantify this problem or challenge, but I know that other organizations have tried to find out how much of a difference the best candidate to the next best candidate really makes. And most companies think that the best candidate compared to the next best candidate really makes a big difference. And we have examples of that. I mean, for a good position where you can really see the outcome directly is sales. And a very successful salesperson can bring in hundreds, thousands, if not millions of dollars to a company compared to an average salesperson. So that's a good position to just show what is probably true for every position, that if you find the right people, they can really accelerate your business. And on the other side, if you don't find the right people, then this can mean at least a delay or slowing down your business, or it could also mean that you can't even start your business. So it's really a bottleneck. It's really like a limiting factor, and you just need the right people on board. And it's not easy for a lot of startup founders to find these people. And it's also quite obvious and simple why it's so tricky, because it's not very efficient to have these startup founders use their valuable and limited time and resources to learn how to hire people, to look for the right people. And at the very beginning, for the first couple of hires, a lot of startups are actually quite successful with their network. But at some point, this is saturated, and then they can't find the right people through their network anymore. And I think this is usually when they start looking for help outside of their network and for professional solutions, services like Tälist that are specialized and have a lot of expertise. And I think what makes Tälist so unique is that we are really the first service that is completely industry specific. So we know from startups that they have been working with hiring agencies, but usually they are from adjacent industries, for example, life science. And that has a couple of downsides. So for example, the recruiters maybe aren't that good in understanding the requirements of certain roles in the alternative protein industry, or they aren't able to properly assess candidates. But it's also about communication. So we've talked to candidates that told us, yeah, we were approached by some recruiters in the name of an alternative protein startup, but I could tell that this person doesn't really know anything about the industry. So they're not doing a very good job in representing the client or the industry. So I think that really is a big justification why it's worth having services specific to the alternative protein industry.
Yeah, those are all really good points, and it's very vital to ensure that you bring on the right people to your team, because the team makes the company. If the team doesn't work well, then the company's not going to succeed. So it's extremely vital.
Exactly.
So what have been some of the biggest hiring challenges that you feel alternative protein companies face?
That really depends on the technology that they're using and also the stage. So we really wanted to find out a little bit more about this topic. So what we did is we did a pilot study. We analyzed roughly 200 open job ads to find out a little bit more where the concrete hiring need is, or which are the skills that the companies are really looking for. And it's yet to be published, so I can't say too much about it. But what I can share is that we found that plant-based businesses that are a little bit more mature usually are looking for B2B sales representatives. So people that can go to a retail chain and sell the product and make them add the product in their shelves. Whereas, for example, clean meat companies are usually looking for scientific or technical staff. It's very R&D heavy, so they usually want people from the scientific field. As I said, it depends a bit on the technology, plant-based versus select, but also the stage. And you can say that at the very beginning, it's mostly R&D, then it's more technical roles. For example, when a startup is having their own industrial production, then you need more technical skills, running a production site basically. And then later on, it's more and more general roles, marketing, sales, and HR.
Okay. And what do you feel that hiring managers look for when they're reading through resumes and conducting interviews?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So what I noticed is that a lot of candidates that approach us, one of the first things they are mentioning is that they are vegan, or when they started their vegetarian diet. And of course, I'm happy about every single person that decides to change their diet. But I think for most companies, this is not the most critical aspect. I mean, everyone will be happy to have a mission-aligned employee, but what they really need is people with the right skill set and people that get the job done. So that means for a candidate, the challenge is basically either to just showcase the skills you have, or if you feel like, okay, I don't really have the exact same skills, but maybe I did something that allows me to transfer my experience to this position, then basically explain how. Just make it very obviously how you can get the job done. And then as a plus, you can also mention that you are mission aligned.
Okay. So what advice do you have for alternative protein job seekers?
Probably this is not the most popular answer, but I'm thinking about patience on different levels. So patience when it comes to applying, and you might apply at a company that is new to hiring and they might make some mistakes that they shouldn't do, that are not nice for a candidate, but they are so new and usually they are struggling when they are early stage startup because they have to take care of so many things. So basically patience when it comes to some actual recruiting process, but then also the bigger picture, which means that the industry is very young and new. And right now, I think compared to more established industries, there's a very specific need for certain roles, whereas other roles are currently not that important. But I am quite sure and convinced that this will change. The bigger the industry grows, the more mature it gets, the more it will also look for general roles. As mentioned earlier, currently we are facing a little bit of a mismatch that there are people that are already super mission aligned and they want to make a career in the all protein industry, but maybe they don't have the skills that are needed right now. So I really want to encourage these people not to give up on their dream, but basically stay tuned and wait a couple of years if you don't find a job right now, because the opportunities will explode at some point. There's no data out there. So we really had to do our own projections and models. And what we noticed is that we will talk about thousands and 10,000s and 100,000s of open positions in the next 5 or 10 or 15 years. And there has been a study that even said if you also basically factor in the supply chain that comes with the alternative protein industry, we're talking about 3 million open jobs by, I think it was 2050. So this is a quite big number compared to the global workforce. It's still a niche market, but compared to the open jobs that we currently see, this is a huge number. And I'm quite sure that there will be more and more room for people with a diverse background. So again, I really want to encourage people to have some patience if they don't find their career path right now. I think it's worth waiting.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and you're absolutely right. The alternative protein industry is sort of on an inflection point where they're moved out of the R&D phase. They have a few products on the market, and now they're trying to really grow their brand. And that's when the hiring really starts to scale up. And I think in the next few years or so, we're going to see a lot of job opportunities in the alternative protein space.
Yes, definitely.
So speaking of growth, how do you envision Tälist growing over the next few years?
For our headhunting branch, I'm hoping that we will grow organically with our clients, basically. That means that my goal is to really cover all major regions of the world, not just the US and UK or Europe, because it's so important to also think about candidates from regions that are currently maybe overlooked. Because of that, I want to have this network of recruiters from all around the globe. And I think the good thing about headhunting really is that it allows you to grow organically. It doesn't require you to have a huge investment at the beginning, like a typical startup would be, but you can grow with the number of clients. At the same time, we are working on some scalable products in the background. So this is more like an actual startup where we might have to approach investors for some initial investment and then create something that has the potential to scale up very quickly. And basically what I want to do is I want to test them both for a while to see which business is really best suited to close this talent gap. And it could be that they're both together doing a great job. And it could be that from Tälist, there will be another brand or another organization, which is basically more like the scalable talent solution startup, whereas Tälist will remain a recruiting or headhunting agency.
All right. And is Tälist actually hiring for any roles?
Yes, we are actively looking for people with a scientific or technical education. So that's so important to have people that understand the technology behind alternative proteins. So we're only basically hiring recruiters with this background that are able to really assess the position and the candidates. And recruiting experience would definitely be a big advantage. But I think compared to a scientific degree, it's easier to train someone in recruitment. That's something that you can also learn on the job. So everyone with a relevant scientific or technical background that would be interested in recruitment is very welcome to reach out to us and have a conversation and learn more about the opportunities at Tälist.
Great. And where should people apply?
They should just reach out to me via email. It's pia.voltz, VOLTZ, @tälist.org, which is TALIST. And then from there on, we can start a conversation.
Excellent. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, just that I think that your podcast is really great. You told me that you're not necessarily interviewing co-founders, but more like the average Joe, people that are making a career in alternative proteins. And I think that's really cool. And I think that's also important for exactly the candidates that we are reaching out to and communicating with, because sometimes they really can't imagine how a career in this field looks like. So your podcast will definitely help them. And it's something that we can refer to and tell them, hey, there's this one episode that might be interesting for you because that person is doing something similar. So yeah, thanks for doing the podcast. It's really a cool project.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm so delighted and honored to hear you say that. And I really admire the work that you're doing, and I'm sure you're going to help many, many alternative protein companies grow their teams.
That would be great. I would love to help them be as successful as possible to build a new food system.
Yeah, well, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me and sharing your insights.
It was my pleasure, and thanks again for having me.
What I really hope this episode illustrates is that there's a growing demand for jobs in the alternative protein industry. So much so that recruiting agencies are needed to help the industry find the right candidates. Even though there may not be a role for you right now, there will be one in the future, as there is a place for everyone, including you, to be a part of the alternative protein revolution. If you want to learn more about careers in the alternative protein industry, please follow the Cultivating Careers in Alternative Protein podcast on Instagram for weekly posts about episode releases, alternative protein resources, job boards, career advice, and so much more.